The late morning sun slanted through the lace curtains of Emma Carter's kitchen, painting the room in a soft, golden glow. The scent of fresh coffee mingled with the faint aroma of baked cinnamon rolls from the counter. Emma, her fingers wrapped around her favorite ceramic mug, sat at the kitchen table, staring out the window at the rolling Texas plains beyond. The ranch stretched for miles, a patchwork of golden fields and green pastures. Horses grazed lazily, and the faint sound of cattle lowing in the distance gave the landscape a peaceful rhythm. It was a view she had inherited with her late husband, David, 5 years ago, a life she had come to cherish quietly, away from the bustle of the town. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sudden ring of her cell phone. She reached for it with a sense of cautious curiosity. The caller ID flashed Michael. "Hey, Mom." Her son's voice rang through the line, carrying a mix of excitement and nerves. "Hey, Michael," she replied warmly, though she noticed a subtle tension in his tone. "Everything okay?" There was a pause, a moment where she could hear his breathing, almost like he was weighing how to say something. "I've got news," he finally said. "Big news." Emma's curiosity sharpened. "Oh," she prompted. "I'm engaged," Michael said, his voice both elated and hesitant. "To Sophia Bennett." Emma felt a rush of emotions all at once. Surprise, pride, a flicker of anxiety. Sophia Bennett. She had met her briefly last year at a town fundraiser. A poised and confident young woman whose family was well known in Dallas. Emma remembered thinking that Sophia was sharp, ambitious, and, though she hadn't realized it then, someone who could challenge her own son in ways Emma had never anticipated. "That's wonderful, Michael," Emma said, keeping her voice steady. "I'm so happy for you both." "Thanks, Mom," he said. "I just wanted to tell you before anyone else. I know this might come as a shock." Emma smiled softly. She had always known Michael would find someone special eventually. "You've got good taste," she said. "Sophia is lovely." "Mom," Michael's voice grew serious. "I hope you'll like her as much as I do. This is really important to me." Emma felt a pang in her chest. Her son was growing up, stepping into a world she could no longer fully control. But she couldn't let her own fears, or the secrets she carried, cloud this moment. "I do like her, Michael," she said firmly. "And I know you've thought this through. You have my full support." There was a pause on the other end. "Thanks, Mom. I appreciate that. Sophia and I want to come by tomorrow and tell you in person. We thought it'd be nice, before the big announcement to the family." Emma nodded, though he couldn't see her. "Of course, I'll be here. I'll bake something special for you both." "Mom, you don't have to." "I insist," she interrupted gently. "It's tradition, isn't it? Family celebrations with coffee and something sweet." "All right," Michael laughed and the tension eased. "See you tomorrow, Mom." After hanging up, Emma sat quietly, staring out at the fields again. The ranch, usually a source of calm and control, suddenly felt like a secretive weight pressing against her chest. She had inherited it from David, under circumstances that had been complicated, even messy. She had chosen not to tell anyone, especially not Michael, about her ownership. Not yet, not until the timing felt right. Emma took a deep breath. The ranch was hers, in every legal sense, but it was more than that. It was a connection to her late husband, a sanctuary from a world that often demanded appearances and social graces. She had told herself that Michael didn't need to know, that it might only complicate his life, and perhaps now she was right. The next morning, the smell of baked cinnamon rolls filled the kitchen again as Emma prepared for Michael and Sophia's visit. She set the table with the finest china she owned, arranging a small bouquet of wildflowers from the pasture. Everything had to feel welcoming, warm yet casual. She wanted Sophia to feel comfortable, like this ranch, her home, wasn't some intimidating emblem of wealth or secrecy, but a place of genuine love. When the doorbell rang, Emma's heart skipped a beat. She opened the door to see Michael and Sophia standing there, both smiling nervously. Michael's arm wrapped around Sophia protectively. "Hi, Mom," Michael said, his eyes bright. "This is Sophia." Sophia extended her hand, but Emma enveloped it in a warm hug instead. "It's so good to see you in person," Emma said. "I've heard so much about you." Sophia smiled, her confidence and warmth immediately apparent. "All good things, I hope," she said lightly. "Of course," Emma replied, leading them inside. The three of them settled in the kitchen, the conversation starting comfortably at first. They spoke about mundane things, weather, the town, Michael's work. But soon Michael leaned forward, his expression earnest. "Mom, I want you to know how serious we are," he said. "Sophia and we're planning a future together. I hope you'll support us. But I also hope you'll be honest with me, like you always are." Emma felt the weight of her secret tugging at her chest. She could tell him, perhaps. She could finally admit that the ranch, the one place she had held close since David passed, was entirely hers. But she knew it wasn't the time. Not today. This day was for celebrating Michael's happiness, not hers. She smiled softly. "Michael, you don't need to worry about me," she said. "I support you, I always have, and I always will." Sophia nodded, a hint of admiration in her eyes. "Thank you, Mrs. Carter. That means a lot." Emma felt a warmth spread through her. Sophia was kind, but there was also something intelligent and discerning in her gaze, something that could see beyond the surface. She knew she had to tread carefully. The last thing she wanted was for her secret to cast a shadow over this happy moment. As the afternoon stretched on, the conversation shifted to wedding plans, venues, and guest lists. Emma listened, offering advice when asked, smiling when appropriate, and laughing at Sophia's stories about Dallas society events. And yet, all the while, the ranch lingered in her mind, a quiet, unspoken presence. Later, when Michael and Sophia had left, Emma stood on the porch, watching their car disappear down the dusty Texas road. The sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. She took a deep breath, feeling both joy and apprehension. Her ranch, her secret, her sanctuary, she had protected it for so long. And she knew that one day, someone might come knocking, expecting her to reveal it. But for now, she was thankful she hadn't. Today was about Michael, about love, and about the beginning of a new chapter for her family. Emma poured herself another cup of coffee and stepped back inside, the warm glow of the kitchen enveloping her. The future was uncertain, yes, but it was also bright, full of possibility. And in that moment, she allowed herself a small, quiet smile. "Thank God I didn't tell him," she whispered softly to herself. "Not yet, not Toda." The early morning sun spilled across the horizon, casting long shadows over the vast expanse of the Carter Ranch. Emma stood on the wooden porch, her fingers lightly brushing the railing, as she took in the sight she had inherited 5 years ago. Rolling hills stretched endlessly, dotted with oak trees and grazing horses. The air smelled faintly of hay and earth, carrying with it the quiet, enduring scent of home. Emma closed her eyes and let herself breathe it in. This land had been David's dream long before it became hers. A place where hard work, patience, and love could flourish together. David had been a man of quiet strength, a steady presence who had built this ranch from the ground up. And when he had passed suddenly, leaving her widowed and alone, she had inherited not just property, but a lifetime of memories. It had been a difficult transition. At first, she hadn't known how to manage it, how to balance her grief with the practical demands of running a ranch. There were mornings when the vast silence of the pastures felt overwhelming, when every creak of the barn door seemed to echo David's absence. But slowly she had learned. She had learned to ride, to mend fences, to care for the livestock, and to respect the rhythms of the land. The ranch had become her sanctuary, a place where she could honor David's memory while finding strength in her own independence. She walked down the gravel path toward the barn, her boots crunching softly. The horses lifted their heads as she approached, recognizing the familiar cadence of her steps. "Morning, girls," she whispered, stroking the mane of her favorite mare, Daisy. The horse nuzzled her hand gently, a small comfort in a world that had changed too quickly. Emma's thoughts drifted back to the day she had inherited the ranch. The legal papers had arrived quietly, with little fanfare. A few phone calls from lawyers, a note of sympathy, and suddenly, the sprawling property that David had cherished was hers. Friends had congratulated her, but Emma had felt no triumph, no victory, only a deep, almost sacred responsibility. She had promised herself that she would honor David by protecting what he had built, by keeping the ranch safe from the chaos of the outside world. It was also why she had never told Michael. She had loved her son fiercely, but she knew that revealing the ranch too soon could complicate his life. Michael was a good man, but young, and he had his own path to walk. If she had told him, it might have stirred unnecessary questions, expectations, or even a sense of entitlement she wasn't ready to impose. And with Sophia entering the picture, Emma felt even more certain that the ranch must remain her secret. For now, Emma paused at the barn, leaning against the weathered wooden door. She could still remember David's voice echoing in this very space, giving instructions to the ranch hands or teasing her when she struggled to lift a bale of hay. "You've got the heart, Emma," he had said once, his eyes twinkling with mischief. But the arms, not so much. She smiled faintly at the memory, a lump forming in her throat. After a moment, she stepped inside, the familiar smell of hay and leather enveloping her. She moved methodically, checking the stalls, feeding the animals, ensuring everything was in order. Her hands were steady, her motions practiced, a silent testament to years of hard work and dedication. As she worked, her mind wandered back to the early days of her marriage with David. They had met in college, both studying agricultural science, both dreaming of a life tied to the land. Their love had been quiet but deep, built on mutual respect and shared ambition. The ranch had been a manifestation of their dreams, a place where they could live authentically and fully, away from the pressures of the city and the judgment of others. After David's passing, Emma had faced not only grief, but also the subtle judgments of the townspeople. Some had questioned her ability to manage the ranch alone. Others had whispered about the inheritance, wondering if she had remarried too quickly or if she was motivated by money. But Emma had ignored them all. This ranch was her life, her connection to the man she had loved, and she would protect it no matter what. She had confided in very few people, only those who truly mattered. Her best friend, Karen, had been her confidant, helping her navigate the complexities of ranch life, while offering a shoulder to cry on during lonely nights. Karen had reminded her repeatedly that keeping the ranch a secret from Michael was a wise choice, at least for now. Some things, Karen had said, are better revealed when the time is right. Don't let anyone rush you, Emma, not even your own heart. Emma had taken that advice to heart. Every time Michael had mentioned buying his first home or making investments, She had smiled and nodded, steering the conversation gently away from her own property. She had told herself that her secret was not deceitful, it was protective. She was shielding Michael from distractions and complications during a pivotal time in his life. And now, with his engagement to Sophia, the stakes felt even higher. As the day wore on, Emma found herself wandering through the orchard, where the apple trees they had planted together with David now bore fruit. She ran her fingers along the rough bark, imagining David's hands beside hers. He had been meticulous in planting, ensuring that every tree had the sunlight and water it needed to thrive. She had continued the work after he passed, tending to the trees with the same care and devotion. The orchard had become a place of solace, a private sanctuary where Emma could feel close to her husband even years after his death. She had spent countless evenings here, sitting beneath the branches, reflecting on the choices she had made and the future she hoped to protect. Emma knew that keeping the ranch a secret would not be easy. Michael was observant, intelligent, and deeply loving. Sophia was perceptive, ambitious, and curious. At some point, they might discover the truth, and she would have to confront it. But she reminded herself that the ranch was not just property. It was her life, her connection to David, and a symbol of the strength she had cultivated over the years. She would reveal it when the time was right, on her own terms and not before. As the sun began to dip low in the sky, casting long shadows over the ranch, Emma returned to the house. The warm glow of the kitchen welcomed her, and she poured herself a cup of coffee, savoring the familiar comfort. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, carrying with it the quiet promise of tomorrow. Emma took a deep breath, her thoughts lingering on the future. Michael's wedding was approaching, and the days ahead would be filled with excitement, planning, and perhaps unforeseen challenges. But she felt a quiet certainty in her heart. She had navigated loss, managed responsibilities, and protected the sanctuary that meant everything to her, and she would continue to do so, even if it meant keeping her secret just a little while longer. Not yet, she whispered to herself, lifting her mug in a small private toast to David's memory. Not yet, and with that, Emma allowed herself to relax into the comfort of her home, her ranch, and the memories that would always keep her connected to the man she had loved so deeply. The ranch was more than land. It was her legacy, her secret, and her sanctuary, and she would guard it quietly until the time came when the world could understand its significance. The late morning sun glinted off the polished SUV as it rolled up the graveled driveway of the Carter Ranch. Emma stood on the porch, a cup of coffee in her hand, her heart beating with a mixture of anticipation and unease. Today, she would meet Sophia Bennett's parents, the first real step into the world that Michael had chosen for himself. Michael had insisted she dress casually, yet presentably. Emma had chosen a soft, cream blouse paired with jeans and her well-worn leather boots. Simple, practical, but undeniably Texan. A subtle declaration that she was a woman rooted in her land, not in wealth or status. The SUV door opened, and out stepped a tall, impeccably dressed man, and a woman who radiated elegance and control. Tom Bennett, Sophia's father, wore a tailored navy suit, polished shoes, and an air of authority that seemed almost tangible. Beside him, Margaret Bennett, Sophia's mother, held herself with refined poise, every gesture deliberate and measured. Emma stepped forward, extending her hand. "Mr. and Mrs. Bennett, welcome to our home," she said, keeping her voice warm and steady. Tom shook her hand firmly, his gaze appraising. "Mrs. Carter, thank you for having us," he said, his voice carrying a slight Texan lilt overlaid with an East Coast refinement. "Sophia has told us so much about you and Michael. We're looking forward to getting to know you." Margaret followed with a soft, practiced smile. "Yes, thank you, Emma. It's wonderful to finally meet the woman who raised such a fine young man." Emma nodded graciously. "It's my pleasure. Please come inside. I hope you'll enjoy some coffee and pastries." The Bennets followed her into the sunlit kitchen, their expressions polite but observant. Emma could feel their eyes subtly taking in the details of the room, the rustic charm, the simple decorations, the framed photos of Michael as a boy, and of course, the expansive windows framing the ranch beyond. As they settled at the table, Michael introduced the Bennets to the ranch hands, who were briefly rounded up to meet them. Emma noticed Tom Bennett's slightly raised eyebrow at the sight of men in work boots and straw hats. It wasn't disdain exactly, but a subtle evaluation, perhaps a quiet comparison to the corporate life he was accustomed to. The conversation began with casual pleasantries, discussing the weather, local news, and Michael's work. Emma was careful to remain neutral, polite but unassuming. She didn't want to reveal too much about her life here, particularly about the ranch itself. Sophia joined in, her presence poised yet approachable. "Mom always says this is the most peaceful place she's ever been," Sophia said, glancing at Emma. "I can see why. It's beautiful." Emma offered a gentle smile. "It has its moments. The work keeps you grounded, that's for sure." She carefully avoided mentioning ownership, allowing the impression to be that she simply lived here comfortably, not that she controlled an entire ranch. Tom leaned back slightly, his fingers drumming lightly on the table. "I imagine managing this property is no small feat," he said, his tone neutral but probing. "It must take quite a bit of experience." Emma felt a flicker of caution. She chose her words carefully. "It has its challenges, yes, but it's rewarding. My late husband managed most of the operations, and I've learned a great deal since then." She allowed a faint, wistful smile, a tribute to David. Margaret sipped her coffee, her eyes studying Emma closely. "And Michael has helped you with the day-to-day?" she asked gently. Emma hesitated, weighing how much to reveal. "He's been helpful, of course," she said, "but he has his own career and responsibilities. I manage most things myself." A slight tension settled over the table. Tom's eyes narrowed just subtly, as though he were calculating Emma's place in Michael's life, assessing whether she might influence his decisions in ways he didn't like. Emma felt a familiar surge of protective instinct. She was determined not to let anyone, especially this family, question her judgment or her role in her son's life. To lighten the mood, Emma motioned toward the freshly baked pastries on the counter. "Please try some of these cinnamon rolls. They're from a recipe my mother taught me. Sweet enough to distract you from serious conversation, I hope." Sophia laughed softly, and Margaret's expression softened as she accepted a roll. Tom took one more hesitantly, but allowed himself a small smile as he took a bite. "Delicious," he admitted. "You may have a gift for baking as well as ranch management." Emma felt a flicker of relief. Humor had diffused some of the tension, and the Bennett seemed slightly more relaxed. She poured herself another cup of coffee and glanced at Michael. He smiled at her, grateful that she was holding her composure. The conversation shifted toward wedding plans, the first real glimpse of the Bennets' expectations. Tom spoke in a tone that was polite but firm, suggesting venues in Dallas, luxury caterers, and a guest list that was far more extensive than Emma had anticipated. Margaret spoke of floral arrangements and table settings, her meticulous nature evident in every word. Emma listened carefully, offering guidance when asked but never overstepping. She knew her place in this delicate dance. Her son's happiness was paramount, and while she could advise, she could not control. And above all, she could not reveal the ranch. It was hers alone, a secret she had vowed to protect. As the afternoon wore on, Emma suggested a tour of the ranch, partly to shift focus from wedding discussions and partly to show the Bennets a glimpse of the life she and David had built. They walked through the pasture, Emma leading with confidence, Michael and Sophia beside her. The horses watched them curiously, and Daisy nuzzled Emma's hand as she passed. Tom's gaze lingered on the land, his expression unreadable. "It's quite something," he remarked finally. "I can see why Michael loves it here." Emma offered a careful smile. "It's more than just land. It's history, memory, and hard work. Every fence post, every tree has a story." She left the emphasis on her late husband, not herself. It was a subtle way to avoid revealing the full extent of her ownership. Sophia's eyes sparkled as she took in the view. "It's magical," she said softly. "I can see why you've kept it so close." Emma's heart softened at that, grateful for Sophia's genuine appreciation. Perhaps her son had chosen well. Perhaps this young woman could understand. Not the full secret of the ranch, but the deeper values it represented. As they returned to the house, Tom's expression remained measured, but Emma felt she had navigated the meeting successfully. The Bennets would leave with impressions. Yes, but they would not know the full extent of her autonomy. Not today. Later, as the SUV disappeared down the long driveway, Emma exhaled deeply, allowing herself a moment of private relief. Michael came to stand beside her on the porch. "Mom," he said quietly, "you handled that perfectly. I know it wasn't easy." Emma placed a hand on his shoulder, squeezing gently. "Michael, it's all about balance. They may not fully understand me yet, but that's okay. Today was about you and Sophia. That's all that matters." He smiled, a mixture of admiration and gratitude in his eyes. "Thanks, Mom. I don't know what I'd do without you." Emma smiled softly, her gaze drifting toward the horizon where the sun began its slow descent. She knew the days ahead would bring challenges, questions, and perhaps even subtle probing into her life. But she felt ready. She had faced loss, hardship, and uncertainty before, and she would face this too, protecting her secret, preserving her sanctuary, and ensuring her son's happiness without compromising the life she had fought to keep. "Not yet," she whispered to herself again, a quiet mantra she repeated like a shield. "Not yet." And with that, Emma Carter turned back into her home, the ranch standing proudly behind her, a symbol of resilience, love, and the careful secrets that sometimes must be kept to protect those we hold dear. The Carter ranch buzzed with activity as Emma moved from room to room, checking lists, schedules, and the myriad small details that accompanied any wedding. Although the wedding itself was months away, today was the first real planning session with Michael, Sophia, and her son's close friends who had volunteered to help. Emma adjusted her blouse and wiped her hands on her jeans before stepping into the living room. The walls, lined with family photos, seemed to hum with memories. Michael was already there, holding a folder filled with notes and invitations. Sophia sat nearby, laptop open, typing notes with the precision of someone accustomed to planning events on a professional scale. "Mom, you'll want to see this," Michael said, handing her the folder. "Sophia and I worked out some preliminary ideas for the guest list and venue options." Emma flipped through the papers, scanning carefully. It was a mixture of local contacts and venues in Dallas, some extravagant, others modest. She noticed a recurring theme. Many of the options were high-end, polished, and far removed from the simplicity of her ranch life. "These are beautiful," she said cautiously. "Very elegant. But remember, this isn't just about appearances. It's about celebrating your love and family. Some of these venues might feel formal for what you both want." Sophia looked up, her eyes sharp but polite. "I appreciate that, Mrs. Carter. We just want something memorable. And Dad has been insistent on a few of the high-end options." Emma nodded, choosing her words carefully. She knew this was more than just a wedding. It was a negotiation between two families, two sets of expectations. She had seen the way Tom Bennett operated, his quiet authority shaping the decisions around him. Emma would have to navigate this carefully, keeping her ranch life and her autonomy separate from the influence Sophia's family might attempt to exert. Michael placed a hand on her shoulder. "Mom, you're amazing at handling this. I know it can feel overwhelming." Emma smiled softly, though inside she felt a familiar twinge of anxiety. Overwhelming was an understatement. Between the planning, the guests, and her daily responsibilities on the ranch, she felt the pressure mounting, but she refused to let it show. "We'll manage," she said firmly. "Step by step. First the venue, then the catering, then the rest. Focus on one thing at a time." Sophia nodded, clearly appreciative of the guidance. "I like that approach. It keeps everything from getting chaotic." Despite the polite exchange, Emma couldn't shake a subtle awareness of the time ticking away. There were chores, feedings, maintenance, and countless small tasks demanding her attention back at the ranch. She had promised herself she would not let the ranch interfere with the wedding preparations. Yet she knew she couldn't completely separate her responsibilities. By mid-morning, the ranch hands had gathered to help with some of the more labor-intensive tasks. Fence repairs, horse feedings, and barn maintenance were underway. Emma moved efficiently between overseeing the work and checking on the progress of wedding plans. It was a delicate balance, and she felt it in every step. Later, Karen, her best friend, arrived unexpectedly, carrying a box of decorations. "Emma, you're going to need some backup," she said, setting the box down with a knowing smile. "There's no way you can do all this alone." Emma laughed softly, grateful for the support. "I know, Karen, but it feels good to be in control of something besides chaos. Planning these details, it's like I can shape at least one part of the future." Karen raised an eyebrow. "And the ranch?" Emma shook her head gently. "Not today. The ranch is my sanctuary. It stays separate." Karen smiled knowingly. "Good. Keep it that way. Secrets can be powerful, but only if you protect them carefully." Emma's mind flickered briefly to the thought of Michael and Sophia. Would they eventually discover her secret? Would it change how they viewed her? Or worse, how they viewed the ranch itself? She pushed the thoughts aside. Today was about the wedding, not the secrets. By afternoon, the sun had climbed high, warming the ranch in a gentle, comforting light. Emma walked out to the pasture, where Daisy and the other horses grazed lazily. She watched them for a few moments, letting the quiet calm of the land soothe her frayed nerves. This ranch had been her refuge, her connection to David, and she knew that keeping it separate from the wedding preparations was the right choice. For now, inside, the planning continued. Emma helped lay out seating arrangements, consulted on color schemes, and offered her opinion on floral arrangements, all while keeping a steady, calm demeanor. Sophia had a keen eye for aesthetics, and the two women found themselves working together surprisingly well. Emma began to sense a quiet respect developing between them, a mutual acknowledgement of competence and care. Yet beneath the polite conversation, Emma remained vigilant. She noticed the subtle ways Tom Bennett's influence lingered even in absent moments, the way his preferences were referenced, the way Sophia sometimes hesitated before offering her own suggestions. Emma knew that navigating these social dynamics required careful observation and patience. One misstep could reveal too much, draw attention to the independence and strength she had cultivated through years of managing the ranch. As the sun dipped lower, painting the horizon in shades of gold and pink, Emma paused to take a deep breath. The day had been long, filled with small victories and subtle challenges, but she had maintained her composure, balanced her responsibilities, and kept her secret intact. Michael approached her, a mixture of pride and relief in his eyes. "Mom, you're incredible. I don't know how you do it all." Emma smiled, a tired but satisfied smile. "It's all about priorities, Michael. Today, the priority was you and Sophia. The ranch, the chores, that's for another time." Sophia joined them, smiling warmly. "Thank you for everything today, Mrs. Carter. I can see why Michael admires you so much." Emma felt a quiet warmth at her chest, a reassurance that she had navigated the day successfully. But as she glanced out toward the sprawling fields, the familiar sight of the ranch reminded her that life there waited, constant and unchanging. The secret she carried was still safe, but she knew that it would not remain so forever. For now, though, she allowed herself a rare moment of peace. The wedding preparations were moving forward. The family was cooperating, and her son was happy. That was enough for today. "Not yet," she whispered softly, as the sun set over the Texas plains. "Not yet." And with that, Emma Carter turned back into the house, ready to continue guiding her son and his future wife through the next steps of their journey, all while guarding the secret that had become her most treasured possession. The next morning, Emma woke to the soft chirping of birds outside her bedroom window. The sun had barely begun to climb over the horizon, and the ranch was quiet, bathed in a golden haze that softened the edges of the fields. She wrapped her hands around a warm cup of coffee and walked to the porch, letting the calm of the early morning settle her thoughts. It had been a whirlwind since Michael and Sophia had announced their engagement. The wedding preparations were underway, but beneath the surface of planning and polite interactions, a tension lingered in Emma's mind. She had always known the day might come when her carefully guarded secret, the ranch she had inherited from David, would be threatened, but she had never anticipated how subtle, insidious, and persistent such pressure could be. Karen arrived mid-morning, as she often did, driving up the gravel path in her dusty pickup. Emma waved, feeling a flicker of relief at the sight of her oldest friend. Karen was the only person who knew the full story about the ranch, the inheritance, the responsibilities, and the reasons Emma had kept it from Michael. "Morning, Emma," Karen called as she climbed down from her truck, carrying a canvas bag filled with papers and notes. "Hope you're ready for a little strategic planning session." Emma smiled, taking a slow sip of her coffee. "As ready as I'll ever be." They settled on the porch swing, the morning breeze carrying the scent of freshly cut grass and hay. Karen pulled out a folder and handed it to Emma. "I wanted to talk to you about, well, about something that might become an issue soon." Emma's eyebrows knitted slightly. "Issue? What kind of issue?" Karen hesitated, her gaze flicking toward the horizon before returning. "It's about the ranch." Emma's chest tightened slightly, though she maintained her composure. "Go on." Karen leaned closer, lowering her voice. "I ran into Linda Parker yesterday. You know, your neighbor. She was at the town cafe, bragging about how much she knows about local properties and assets. And she specifically mentioned, well, She implied that she's heard something about the Carter ranch being inherited by someone. Emma's fingers tightened around her coffee mug, the warmth doing little to soothe the sudden chill creeping up her spine. Implied, she repeated carefully. She didn't outright say it. Karen shook her head. No, but she hinted. And you know how she is. Once she thinks she has dirt, she'll gossip, she'll twist it. And sooner or later, it will reach Michael or even Sophia's family if we're not careful. Emma stared out across the pasture, her mind racing. The thought of Michael discovering her secret before she was ready was like a physical weight pressing against her chest. I see, she said slowly. So, what do you suggest? Karen's eyes were sharp. We need to be proactive. Make sure that this information doesn't leak. And also start thinking about how we'd handle it if it does. You can't control what Linda says, but you can control how it's managed when the time comes. Emma nodded, the weight in her chest easing slightly at Karen's practical approach. Agreed, but I still don't want Michael to know, not yet. The engagement, the wedding planning, this isn't the time. Karen reached across and squeezed her hand. I know, but secrets have a way of surfacing when we least expect it. You've been smart, Emma. Just stay vigilant. They spent the next hour going over potential scenarios. Ways the secret could be accidentally revealed, how to handle questions from Michael or Sophia, and even subtle ways to steer conversations away from property and finances. Karen's suggestions were practical and sometimes blunt, but Emma appreciated the clarity. After Karen left, Emma walked to the barn, her mind restless. She watched Daisy and the other horses, running her fingers along their sleek coats, as if grounding herself in reality. The ranch had always been her sanctuary, her connection to David, and now it also represented her responsibility and her secret. Losing control over it, or having it exposed prematurely, was unthinkable. Michael arrived later that afternoon, his cheerful energy filling the kitchen. Mom, guess what? He said, holding up an envelope. It's a tentative booking confirmation for one of the venues Sophia and I liked. Emma forced a warm smile. That's wonderful. Michael, I'm glad things are moving forward. He bounced with excitement, but Emma noticed a flicker of hesitation in his eyes, the way he looked at her, as if searching for reassurance. She kept her expression calm. Everything is fine, Michael. I'm happy for both of you. As he left to make another call to the caterer, Emma found herself alone again. The house suddenly quiet, except for the soft ticking of the clock. She moved to the living room window, staring out at the fields, and allowed herself a private moment to reflect. The thought of Linda Parker, of gossip, of secrets threatening to unravel her careful life, weighed heavily on her. Emma had always believed that some things were better left unsaid. That timing was everything. But now, with wedding preparations accelerating and new people entering their lives, she realized that the timing might not remain in her control. Her phone buzzed with a text from Karen. Stay sharp. Not everything is as quiet as it seems. Emma sighed and set the phone down. Karen was right, of course. She had been careful, meticulous, and prudent, but the world had a way of intruding on even the best-laid plans. As the sun began its descent, painting the Texas sky in hues of amber and rose, Emma stepped onto the porch again, gazing at the endless fields. She repeated her quiet mantra, a shield against rising anxiety. Not yet, not yet. But this time, there was an edge to the words, a recognition that soon she might have to face the truth in ways she hadn't anticipated. The wedding, Michael's future, Sophia's family, and even the town's prying eyes created a complex web that she had to navigate carefully. She poured herself a cup of coffee, letting the warmth settle her nerves, and took a deep breath. The ranch waited behind her, steadfast and enduring, and Emma knew, with absolute certainty, that she would protect it, her sanctuary, her secret, no matter what challenges lay ahead. For now, all she could do was prepare and wait. Not yet, she whispered again, her voice firm against the coming storm. The morning of the bridal shower dawned crisp and clear, with a pale sunlight spilling over the Carter ranch. Emma stood in the kitchen, her hands wrapped around a steaming mug of coffee, her mind racing. Today was meant to be a celebration, a joyful event for Michael and Sophia, but Emma couldn't shake a familiar tension that clung to her like a shadow. The invitations had gone out weeks ago, and a small circle of friends and family would gather to honor the bride-to-be. Emma had offered to host the shower at the ranch, citing its beauty and charm, though deep down she knew part of her motivation was to maintain control over the environment. She wanted to ensure the event remained cheerful, dignified, and free of unnecessary probing into her private life. Corinne arrived first, carrying a basket of pastries, her usual cheerfulness tempered by an unspoken awareness. "Emma," she said softly, setting the basket on the counter. "Remember, just keep calm today. Let them enjoy themselves, and avoid any topics you don't want to discuss." Emma nodded, sipping her coffee. "I know, but it's harder than it seems. People can be persistent." Corinne gave a knowing smile. "You've managed worse. Just remember, your secret is yours to protect." By mid-morning, guests began to arrive, their laughter and chatter echoing across the ranch. Emma greeted each one politely, shaking hands, offering hugs, and subtly steering conversations toward wedding plans, decorations, and the upcoming ceremony. Sophia arrived shortly after, radiant in a soft pastel dress, her hair styled elegantly. She smiled warmly at Emma. "Thank you for hosting, Mrs. Carter. The ranch is beautiful. Everyone will love it here." Emma returned the smile, keeping her tone light. "I'm glad you like it. It's always nice to share this place with family and friends." The morning passed in a flurry of activity, arranging flowers, setting out refreshments, and guiding guests to the best spots on the porch and in the garden. Emma moved gracefully among the group, offering suggestions and gentle laughter, all the while keeping her thoughts tethered to the underlying tension she felt. It wasn't long before subtle probing began. A distant cousin, eager to make conversation, glanced around the room and commented, "Emma, this ranch, it must take a lot of work. How long has it been in your family?" Emma's smile remained steady, but her mind sharpened. "Well, it's something my late husband and I managed together," she said carefully, placing emphasis on David. "I've kept busy maintaining it since he passed." The cousin nodded, accepting the answer at face value, but Emma noticed the quick glance exchanged with another guest. Gossip, she realized, had a way of spreading faster than wildfire. As the afternoon continued, Emma found herself subtly guiding conversations, answering questions about the ranch with vague, careful statements. She mentioned only that she managed the property without ever revealing ownership or inheritance. She could feel the curiosity simmering in some of the guests, but she refused to yield to it. Corinne stayed close, offering quiet support and occasionally whispering, "Good, keep it light, don't reveal anything." Emma appreciated the vigilance. Her best friend had a way of noticing details she sometimes overlooked. Despite her careful management, one persistent question lingered: Tom Bennett's influence. Although he hadn't attended the shower, his presence was felt in every mention of Sophia's family's expectations. Guests, perhaps emboldened by familiarity with the Bennetts' high social standing, asked probing questions about finances, family properties, and even future plans. Emma navigated each with grace, keeping her tone neutral, her expressions warm, and her secrets firmly guarded. At one point, a neighbor, Linda Parker, of course, leaned over as Emma passed by with a tray of refreshments. "Such a lovely property," she said casually, her eyes flicking toward the fields. "I always wondered who really owns it. Must be nice to have so much land." Emma smiled politely, resisting the urge to snap. "It's more about the work than the land," she said gently, placing the tray down. "A lot of effort goes into maintaining it." Linda's gaze lingered, as if expecting more. But Emma moved on, her composure intact. She could feel Karen's approving glance, a silent acknowledgement of how well she had handled the encounter. As the afternoon wore on, the atmosphere remained festive, with laughter, games, and small gifts for Sophia. Yet beneath the cheerful exterior, Emma felt the undercurrent of curiosity and social probing, a reminder that her secret was never far from discovery. Sophia approached her privately, a small, knowing smile on her lips. "Mrs. Carter, you handled that beautifully. Everyone seems to love it here, and you kept everything running smoothly." Emma's heart softened at the compliment. "Thank you, Sophia. I just want a day to be about you and the excitement of your upcoming wedding. That's all that matters." Sophia nodded, her gaze sincere. "I appreciate that, and I hope you know I respect the way you manage things. It's inspiring." Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest. Perhaps Sophia was more understanding than she had initially feared. Still, she knew better than to relax completely. Secrets, especially ones tied to property and inheritance, had a way of surfacing at the least opportune moments. As the sun began to lower in the sky, casting long shadows over the ranch, the guests started to depart, leaving Emma and Karen to tidy up. The house was quiet once more, but the weight of the day lingered. Emma poured herself a cup of coffee, leaning against the kitchen counter, her thoughts drifting to Michael, Sophia, and the delicate balance she maintained. Today had been a success, yes, but the subtle hints, the probing questions, and the persistent curiosity of others reminded her that the ranch secret was always at risk. Karen leaned against the counter beside her, folding her arms. "You handled that perfectly," she said. "But you know this won't be the last time someone tries to dig." Emma nodded, her gaze distant. "I know, but we wait. We stay calm, not yet." Karen gave a soft sigh, understanding her friend's determination. "You've got this, Emma. You always do." The ranch, bathed in the warm glow of the setting sun, stood behind them as a silent guardian of her secret, a constant reminder that some things were worth protecting at all costs. And Emma knew, as she watched the horizon, that she would continue to guard her sanctuary, carefully, patiently, until the time was right. "Not yet," she whispered once more, her voice firm and resolute. Michael sat back slightly, still processing the revelation. "Mom, all these years, and you managed everything on your own. Why didn't you let me help?" Emma smiled softly, a mixture of pride and relief in her eyes. "Because it was mine to protect. Your father trusted me to carry on, and I had to prove to myself that I could do it. But now, you're ready to understand." There was a quiet moment as Michael took in the vast expanse of the ranch, imagining the years of hard work, love, and dedication that had gone into maintaining it. "Mom, this is incredible. I had no idea." Emma placed her hand gently on his shoulder. "I know it's a lot to take in, but I've done what I thought was best for all of us. And now, I think it's time you see the ranch as a part of your family too, not just me." Michael's eyes softened. "I get it, Mom, and I thank you for everything." At that moment, Sophia entered the room, having overheard part of the conversation. She looked from Emma to Michael, Her eyes filled with curiosity and warmth. Emma, this ranch is yours, all of it. Emma nodded. Yes, Sophia, and I've kept it private not because I didn't trust you, but because I wanted to protect the life my husband and I built together. Sophia's expression softened, a mixture of respect and admiration evident. I understand, and thank you for sharing this with us. It must mean a lot. Michael reached for Sophia's hand. See, Mom's amazing. She's carried this whole ranch on her own. Sophia smiled at Emma. It's beautiful, and not just the land, but everything you've done here. I respect that so much. Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had feared judgment, interference, or resentment, but instead she found understanding, love, and respect. The secret that had weighed so heavily for years could now be shared, and the tension that had lingered over the family began to dissolve. Later that day, Tom and Margaret Bennett arrived for a visit, invited by Michael and Sophia to meet Emma again after the secret was revealed. Emma greeted them with calm confidence, the earlier tension replaced with dignity and grace. Tom extended his hand. Mrs. Carter, I hear this ranch has been quite the project. Emma smiled. Yes, it has, and it's been my privilege to manage it. I wanted to share it with Michael now that he's old enough to understand its value, not just financially, but emotionally. Margaret nodded, a look of approval in her eyes. It's admirable. Michael is lucky to have such a strong, capable mother. The family spent the afternoon touring the ranch together. Michael and Sophia listened intently as Emma shared stories of her years managing the property, the lessons she had learned, and the memories she had preserved from her time with David. The land seemed to sparkle under the late afternoon sun, a symbol not just of hard work, but of love, resilience, and legacy. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Emma stood on the porch, watching Michael and Sophia walk hand in hand through the fields. She felt a quiet peace settle over her, knowing that the secret she had protected for so long had finally been shared with those who mattered most, and had been met with understanding and respect. Karen appeared at her side, smiling. Looks like everything's falling into place. Emma nodded. It is. Finally, the time was right. She took a deep breath, letting the cool evening air fill her lungs. The ranch stood behind her, vast and enduring, a testament to years of love, work and sacrifice, and now, with her family aware and supportive, she could finally feel the weight of the secret lift from her shoulders. Michael turned back, waving. Mom, dinner's ready. Come join us. Emma smiled, her heart light. She knew there would always be challenges ahead, weddings, family dynamics, life's unpredictable moments. But for now, she had fulfilled her promise to David, protected her sanctuary, and shared it with the people she loved most. As she walked toward the house, she whispered softly, a final echo of her long-held mantra, not yet, because now it's time. And for the first time in years, Emma Carter felt truly at peace.